Have you ever stopped to think how easily trust, identity, even family lines can get blurred? Or completely shattered, really, in this digital age?
Yeah, it's quite something. Like, what happens when the people who are supposed to protect you actually take your image, your whole identity, and use it for their own scams?
Exactly. And today, we're diving deep into just such a case. It's an extraordinary, frankly disturbing story from Thailand.
It really is. It involves a mother, her daughter, identity theft on a massive scale, love scams, and it escalates. The threats become very real, very dangerous.
The sources we've looked at paint this really chilling picture. A family just tangled up in this web of digital lies with consequences spilling out into the real world.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to try and unpack this incredibly complex situation. We want to understand, or try to understand, the mother's motives, what she was thinking.
And the daughter's position, too, her desperate plea for help, for safety, and then the legal angles, the psychological dimensions. It's a lot.
It is. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll walk away well-informed and maybe, like us, a little bit stunned.
Stunned is probably the right word.
Okay, let's get right into it then. So the story centers on this young woman, Noi Na, and her mother.
Right. And for, get this, 8 or 9 years, the mother has been using Noina's photos, her daughter's photos.
Very right, 9 years.
Yeah, as her profile picture online, on Facebook, the main platforms.
And the excuse at first.
Well, initially she tried to justify it, said it was for work, claimed customers like dealing with younger, more attractive profiles, helped her close deals, supposedly.
But Noi Na wasn't buying it for long, was she? She sensed something else was going on.
No, she definitely started getting suspicious. She noticed her mother, who's single, having these frequent phone calls, often late at night, and they sounded affectionate, really affectionate. Clearly not work calls. So Noina's unease just kept growing.
And it didn't stop at just using the photos, right?
Yeah.
The mother actually started involving Noi Na.
Yeah, that's where it gets even more unsettling. The mother escalated it, actively drawing Noina into the deception, making her a prop in her own life, sort of.
A prop, exactly. Like with their first man, the one the sources call King.
Ah, King, yes. The mother would actually set up meetings.
And tell Noi Na what? Just stand there.
Pretty much. She'd instruct Noina, just nod and smile, don't say anything. When meeting these men, she was fooling online.
Can you imagine your own mother telling you to do that?
It's hard to fathom, and it climaxed, if you can call it that, at this incredibly bizarre Valentine's Day dinner.
Oh, right, the flowers.
Yeah. King turns up, gives Noina this bouquet, totally believing she's the woman he's been talking to, falling for.
And the mother's right there.
Right there, pushing Noina to accept the flowers, pose for pictures, making the whole lie more concrete, trapping Noina even deeper in it.
It just blurs that line so dangerously, doesn't it? Between the fake online thing and the real world.
Completely. And the consequences become very real for Noina, who's done nothing wrong.
And then King, he proposed.
After a year of these conversations with the mother, he proposed marriage to Noina.
That must have terrified her.
Absolutely. Her fear for her safety just went through the roof, understandably. She actually ended up moving out of the family home.
Did that stop care?
Not really. He started showing up at the house, looking for her, demanding to see her. He'd even argue with the mother.
Thinking he was arguing with Noi Na.
Exactly. He was completely convinced. It just shows how powerful that digital deception was, creating this whole alternate reality for him and a nightmare for Noina.
So Noi Na's realizing she's trapped, she's scared, she has to do something, right? She starts trying to fight back.
Yeah, she knew she had to take some direct action to protect herself, really.
So she confronted another one of these men, Tom.
Right, Tom. She found him, or figured out who he was, and contacted him directly. I think it was via TikTok.
Yeah, the sources say TikTok.
And she just laid it out for him, told him, look, you're not talking to me, you're talking to my mother.
How did Tom react?
Well, the sources say he was shocked, profoundly shocked, and then he just disappeared, vanished from the picture. Guess he understood the scam then.
But the mother,
Hmm.
how did she react to Noi not telling the truth?
Oh, furious, absolutely furious. She didn't back down or apologize, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Instead, she started making these really weird demands, asking Noina to block men on Noina's own real social media accounts.
Why would she ask that?
Because she was terrified. terrified these other men she was scamming might stumble across the real Noina online, figure out the truth, and her whole house of cards would collapse.
So as Noina is trying to untangle herself from this mess, she runs into another problem, her own legal situation. I mean, given how she was forced into some of this, or at least aware of it, what kind of legal risk was she actually in?
It's a really, really difficult position, a legal tightrope, as you said earlier, because while she's clearly a victim,
Yep.
her awareness and maybe that early complicity, even though it was under duress, it could potentially open her up to liability, especially with things like that bank account we need to talk about later.
So knowing about it, even being forced to nod and smile,
Yeah.
that puts her in a sticky spot legally.
It can, yeah. In some situations, it really highlights why her later actions, going public and filing reports, were so absolutely critical for her own protection.
Okay, so she's trying to distance herself, but they get worse before they get better. It escalates again.
Oh, definitely. To a really alarming, dangerous level. Unbelievably, it gets even darker with another man. We'll call him Jack.
Jack. Right. What happened with him?
Noina found her picture on Jack's TikTok profile. Just her photo.
So she commented.
Yeah, she commented directly. Just asked him something simple like, "Why is my photo on your profile?"
And the mother's reaction.
Immediate, vicious, long, angry chat messages flying at Noina. And then it actually spilled over into a physical fight.
A physical fight.
Yes, involving Noina's younger brother, Du. He tried to step in.
Du tried to help.
Yeah, bravely. He tried to intervene by grabbing the mother's phone, or maybe just the SIM card she used to talk to Jack, and getting rid of it, trying to cut off the communication.
How did the mother take that?
Badly. Very badly. A really disturbing outburst. Started hitting herself, screaming for the SIM card back.
Hitting herself.
Yeah. And the sources mention this chilling detail in audio clip where her voice apparently changes. Sounds like a gooman, which is like a child ghost in Thai folklore. Or maybe just an older person trying to sound very young and childlike.
Wow. That's deeply unsettling. Shows how desperate she was.
Desperate and manipulative. And it wasn't just emotional or physical stuff. There's a huge financial angle here, too.
Okay, let's talk about the money.
The mother convinced Noina, her own daughter, to open a brand new bank account and link it to her phone.
Noina's phone. Or the mother's.
Noina's phone, but the mother seemed to have control, and then she used that account to receive money from these men, like Jack.
How much money were we talking about?
Over 100,000 Thai baht, which is, what, around 2,700 US dollars?
And she threatened Noina.
Oh, yeah. Said if Noina exposed her, she'd team up with Jack and accuse Noina of being in on the scam, of being complicit in the fraud.
That's pure manipulation. Using the threat of legal trouble she herself created.
Exactly. Chillingly calculated. And the manipulation didn't stop there. She even lied to Jack's mother.
Wait, she contacted the scam victim's mother?
Yes. Spun this elaborate tale. Claimed Noina and Jack had been dating, but broke up. And she, the mother, was just stepping in to try and save the relationship.
Unbelievable.
And then added this layer, falsely telling Jack's mom that Jack was angry, drunk, showing up at their house threatening Noina. Just complete fabrication to make herself look like a concerned intermediary.
The depth of the lies is
For
just
sure.
staggering. How did all this affect Jack? I mean, he clearly believed something totally different.
Oh, profoundly. He genuinely believed he'd been dating Noina for 3 years. 3 years. And that he'd met her 5 times. Noina denies this, completely says maybe she saw him twice, briefly, in those staged nod and smile situations orchestrated by her mother. She never had a real conversation with him, let alone dated him.
But Jack believed it.
Wholeheartedly. And it led to this terrifying real-world confrontation. Jack actually pulled up alongside Noina's car one day,
Oh, no.
rolled down his window, started yelling at her, accusing her of not answering his calls she'd never received because they were going to her mother.
That's terrifying.
And then he made direct, severe threats. Things like, "I will hunt you down, I will kill you, your husband, your mistress." Just horrific threats based on a complete fantasy created by the mother.
It's just a stark example of how these online deceptions can explode into real-world violence and danger.
Absolutely. The lines just completely vanished for him, and Noina was left facing the consequences.
Okay, this is where we really need to bring in the expert perspectives, the legal side first. Lawyer Paisel, mentioned in the sources, outlines a really complex situation in Thailand, right?
Extremely complex because of this concept of filial impiety in Thai law.
Which means what, exactly?
Essentially, it prevents a child, like Noina, from directly suing their own parent. So she can't take her mother to court for the fraud or the identity theft herself.
So what can she do legally to protect herself?
She can and did file a police report. This is crucial. It documents everything her mother did, creates an official record. It helps protect her from being implicated, especially with that bank account. It establishes her side of the story, her non-complicity.
Okay, so she documents it with the police. But what about justice for the men who were scammed? Like Jack.
They can sue the mother, Jack, Tom, any other victims. They have grounds to sue her directly for fraud. That's a separate legal track.
Right. But there was something Noina had to do legally.
Yes, and this is critical for her own safety and legal standing. The lawyer advised she must sue Jack.
Sue Jack, what?
For the threats, the intimidation. Making those death threats is a serious crime in Thailand, punishable by up to 3 years in prison. By suing him, she officially positions herself as his victim in court, further proving she wasn't his accomplice, which is what her mother and maybe even Jack might claim.
So suing Jack is actually part of proving her own innocence in the larger fraud.
Exactly. It's a necessary step to clear her name and protect herself. The lawyer even mentioned, chillingly, a U.S. case where a similar kind of maternal deception led to murder. It just shows how high the stakes can get.
A really stark warning. Okay, let's shift to the psychological side. Professor Juarez, the mental health expert in the sources, weighed in on the mother's behavior. Was it like multiple personality disorder?
That was the question posed, yeah. But Professor Juarez clarified things. He explained that acting out, even in these extreme ways, primarily for personal gain like money or relationships, doesn't typically fit the clinical picture of dissociative identity disorder, or DID.
So it's not DID.
Probably not, based on his assessment from the described behavior. DID involves involuntary shifts between distinct identities, often rooted in trauma. This seems more like conscious manipulation for benefit.
So what did he suggest it might be?
He floated the possibility of histrionic traits, or maybe even a personality disorder with histrionic features. This involves patterns of attention-seeking, excessive emotionality, dramatic displays, often to manipulate or gain something. Things like the outbursts, the self-harm, those voice changes, they could fit that pattern.
But it needs diagnosis.
Oh, absolutely. He stressed that. You can't diagnose from afar. His strong recommendation was that the mother needs a proper psychiatric evaluation to really understand what's going on underneath.
It really shows how deep-seated psychological issues can get twisted and amplified online, hurting everyone around.
Definitely. And there was that other bizarre detail, too. The mother apparently commenting on her own social media posts, but using the fake Noina profile she created.
Wait, commenting on her own stuff as her daughter.
Yeah. It's like she was reinforcing the fantasy even for herself, blurring her own grip on reality. Deeply strange.
So, after all this, years of deception, fear, threats, Noina finally reached her limit. She had to make a final stand.
She really did. It was an act of desperation, but also incredible strength. She decided to go public, to tell everyone, officially, and cut ties with her mother.
What was her message?
Heartbreakingly clear, basically. I am not the person doing this. My mother is. I won't be responsible for anything else that happens because of her actions. It was a public declaration to protect herself, legally and emotionally.
Drawing a line in the sand.
Exactly. And she offered her own theory about the why, the deep motivation behind her mother's behavior.
What did she think it was?
She believes her mother lacks love deeply, and that she was trying to create this avatar daughter.
An avatar daughter.
Yeah, a version of Noina that lived up to the mother's own fantasies and desires. A controllable, perfect version, completely separate from the real Noina, who she just saw as, well, as a tool, an identity to be used.
Wow. That's a profound and sad interpretation.
Isn't it? And Noina emphasized, she tried everything. Talking, reasoning, getting other family involved. But her mother just wouldn't stop. Couldn't stop, maybe.
So going public was the absolute last resort.
The only option left, it seems. Laying bare all this private pain to try and reclaim her own life and safety. A really powerful statement about needing to break free, even from family, when trust is so fundamentally broken.
This deep dive, it just starkly reveals the damage digital deception can cause, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and how it tangles up family, law, psychology, all of it. When someone exploits trust like that, especially a parent, the impact is immense.
It really hammers home the need for, I guess, critical thinking and caution online, even, unfortunately, with people we think we know best.
Yeah, the digital world makes creating alternate realities so easy. But this case shows how violently those fake worlds can collide with the real one, with devastating results. So, maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this. We know the digital world lets us create avatars of ourselves. But what happens when someone else creates an avatar of you? Uses your identity for their desires?
Right. And what does that impulse, that need to create and control someone else's image, tell us about our own human needs? For connection, maybe. Or is it more about control? Something to really think about.